Hello, Feuzion. My name is Alex Fuse, the host of Feuzion News, and we have a big show for you right now. I'm on the phone with MLB beat writer for the New York Mets, Mr. Anthony DiComo. So, Anthony, if a Met fan walked up to you today and asked you, should I believe in the 2019 Mets, what would you say to them?
Yeah, I think they're the ones telling all of us to believe. This is quite the story, this team this year. I think most people, or most sane people anyways, would have counted them out a long time ago. It seems extraordinarily unlikely that they would even sniff a postseason race, let alone make a charge like the one they're doing. But here we are. They've won 14 out of 15 at the time of us recording this podcast. They are right back in it. They are every bit the playoff contenders that the other top teams in the National League are. So, yeah, I mean, I think all along the players have said that. They've said, we believe that we're still in. We believe that we're not out of it. It rings a little hollow when you're not winning games and when you're 13, 14 games back of first place. So whether they truly in their heart of hearts believe that or not, I think only they really know. But right now, certainly they believe, certainly everyone in the fan base watching the team believe, there's a lot to like about what the Mets are doing right now.
How important was it to this Mets team to keep Wheeler at the deadline? You don't really talk about teams keeping players at the deadline and see how much it impacts a team. So how important do you think the Mets keeping Wheeler and not shipping him off to another team has been to this 2019 Mets?
Yeah, I think what fans don't realize sometimes is that players pay every bit of as much attention as we do to what goes on at the deadline. They're always refreshing MLB trade rumors. They want to know what's happening. If they're getting dangled out there in trades, you can be certain that they know. So I think a lot of people around the Mets team assumed what was being reported, and that was what the Mets were doing. They were shopping Zach Wheeler. They were shopping Noah Syndergaard. They were likely to trade at least one of the two, probably Wheeler. And then lo and behold, the market played some tricks on them, played some tricks on the rest of baseball. They wound up keeping Wheeler, not only keeping Wheeler, but adding Marcus Stroman, another very good starting pitcher, at the deadline. So, yeah, that is a shot in the arm for a lot of these guys. And look, I'm not going to sit here and say that that's the reason why they've gone on this run. It's certainly more than Zach Wheeler. Now, Zach Wheeler has helped. He hasn't allowed a run since the trade deadline. And there is that moral boost of saying, okay, if management's in it to win it, then we can really be vindicated in our stance that we've always been in it to win it as players. So all of that helps, and the Mets have kind of taken all that together and run with it. And, I think the fact that to have a team believe is one thing, to have management believe is definitely another, and to have everyone on the same page can do wonders for a club.
So we're going to go to some fan questions right now. And this one is, can you see the Mets making any more waiver acquisitions over the next month?
Well, they made a couple this past week with Brad Brack in the bullpen, Joe Panik at second base. And I think those are probably the biggest things that the Mets are going to do. It's tough now without waiver deals, without waiver trades anymore, as we've had in years past. It's tough to really add impactful pieces. So you never know what happens with injuries. If a hole opens, certainly at that point, you start looking for things. But I think the Mets are pretty satisfied with what their roster looks like right now. Robinson Cano's probably going to be out for a while. But other than that, Brandon Nimmo is probably going to be out for a while more. But other than that, the Mets are pretty happy with every quarter of their roster. Lineup is hitting. Starting rotation is among the best in baseball. And the bullpen, which was so bad for them earlier this season, has been so much better lately. So I certainly wouldn't count out any other acquisitions, but I don't think anything really on the front burner right now.
This is a great point, and this is the first year, like you were just saying, Anthony, about this. There's really only one trade deadline now in baseball, and the MLB really wanted to try to bring this one in to try to make it almost like a grand finale at July 31st, and we didn't really see that up until the final few seconds leading up to 4 o'clock with Zach Greinke going to the Houston Astros. So do you feel like as we start going, on the next few seasons in the MLB, if we'll see another trade deadline in August, like what we've seen in previous years? And it has to, when you look at the New York Yankees, when you lose guys like a Luke Voigt, and then you only have a first baseman like in Mike Ford, who's done an okay job, but how for the future long run, like you were saying, you can't really add a guy that can make much of an impact as you could after July 31st.
Yeah, I like what Major League Baseball has done and reducing it to just the one trade deadline. I think it adds a lot of fun in terms of following along at the deadline. Similar to kind of what you see in other sports, the NBA specifically, that has free agency all in a 3-day span. It leads to action. It leads to teams competing over the same players at the same time, and it really, I think from a marketing standpoint, people watching the sport and consuming the sport, it's really, really fun. Now, this being the first year that there was only one trade deadline, I think certainly for GMs it took some getting used to. I think they weren't quite as certain of how the market would go as they are in previous years, and I think the Mets, for example, Bernie Van Wagenen adjusted pretty quickly, and everyone thought he was going to sell. He wound up buying because the price that he saw in Marcus Stroman was cheaper than he thought the market value was. Other teams like the Yankees, for example, didn't do anything at the deadline, and I think part of that's because of the market. It was a different market than these teams have seen in years past. So I don't think there's necessarily a need for a later trade deadline like they've had in the past. I think it does force you to make a choice sooner if you're going to contend or not, if you're going to buy or sell. And, if this trade deadline was 2 weeks earlier than it was, the Mets would probably have had much more incentive to sell. Instead, they bought. Other teams stood pat. Lots of teams are on the game thought as well. And it makes for a fun final 2 months. And from the Mets perspective, yeah, all of a sudden they're loaded up, they're gearing up, and they're ready to go.
Another fan question is, they say simply, why isn't Rajai Davis on this team?
Well, the Mets have stuck with Juan Lagares through thick and thin, and every time they feel like it's about time for the Mets to part ways, something happens, an injury or something else. The latest one was probably Robinson Cano getting hurt, which shifted Jeff McNeil a little bit to the infield, and the Mets have never been able to quite pull the trigger on getting rid of Juan Lagares. The Mets like Rajai Davis, having him at AAA for some depth. I think they like having that insurance down there. Of course, it's only a useful insurance policy if you cash in every now and then. But the other side of the coin is Rajai Davis is 38, and regardless of what he's done in AAA, he did have that big home run up with the Mets earlier this season. I do think there's some realism about what he can contribute, but I wouldn't count him out to not come up at all the rest of the year. And certainly once Robinson expands in September, he's going to have a chance to be back up. He's a fun guy. Everyone loves living and having him in the clubhouse. So certainly there will be a lot of people rooting for him to come back up in September.
Quentin Pelzel wants to know if you've heard about your parody account, Anthony DiGiorno, and how did you find out about the account if you did, and if you think it's funny?
I did. I have seen it. He actually, a couple of people had sent it to me, and then Anthony DiGiorno himself, the chef's hat and all, he wound up sending me a DM earlier this season saying how many retweets would I have to get for you to follow me, something like that. So I threw out a number, and he got it very quickly. I was very proud of him, and wound up following him. But yeah, it's fun. It's a little jarring to see yourself being parodied sometimes, but he seems to have fun. He's a very big Mets fan, and that's what it's all about, right? Have a little fun, follow the team you enjoy, and yeah, have fun with it.
Yeah, and that kind of brings me into my next part of the show, asking a couple of quick questions about your career. Again, what is your favorite part about your job?
My favorite part about my job is, and I say this all the time, it is honestly I hate that I have to go to work today. No, I enjoy going to work. I like going to work, especially in times like these. And as reporters, we are, at least we strive to be truly unbiased. And I've never found that all that difficult to do, to look at it from an unbiased perspective rather than a fan's perspective and consume the game that way. But that being said, when there's excitement around a team that you cover, when the team is winning, when people are interested, obviously there's a little more juice that goes to what you do every day. I write a story. I know a lot more people are reading it, paying attention, and enjoying it than if the team were 20 games out of first place. So that much is very fun. And sitting down, let me say this. It is a job. Like any other job, it has its highs, it has its lows, it has its stresses. But I'm very blessed. I get to watch baseball for a living. So, yeah, that's 7 to 10 o'clock every night where I get to sit down, watch a game, have a prime seat in a stadium that people are paying lots of money to be in and watch that game as well. It's a really cool thing, and I try never to lose sight of that.
Well, there's a few months left of this season, and it's wrapping up pretty quickly. But let's say the Mets win the World Series this year, and you look back at it. You had to cover really the lowest point of almost the last 10 years of the Mets, and then also the highest point. I mean, you look back at where the Mets were a few months ago. That was probably the lowest points of a team, and to now covering them at the highest pinnacle point in the MLB as a whole.
And that's why baseball seasons are so cool. That's why there are 162 games, because you can have those things. I covered the 2015 team, of course, and they were similar. For half a year, they had the worst offense in Major League Baseball. They didn't look like they were going anywhere. And all of a sudden, a couple moves happened. They caught fire at the right time. They never looked down until they reached the World Series. So it's a similar path that this year's team is taking. And obviously, if they had it their way, they would have just been on top the whole way. But it adds to the drama when you come from behind, when you are an underdog. And the Mets have certainly embraced that much. Not that they ever felt that they were underdogs in the sense that they couldn't play with teams, but when you dig that sort of hole, you don't play up to your potential for that long. For the Mets, it was almost 4 full months. You become an underdog by default, and I think that can give a little juice to the players. I think that can give a little juice to the fan base, put a little chip on everybody's shoulder, and certainly make it more rewarding for the players and the fans when they do wind up winning.
One of my favorite segments on this show is I call the Fast 5 quick round. So it's just 5 quick questions, and you have however long you need to answer the questions. Are you ready, Anthony?
I'm ready.
All right, first question. Favorite MLB stadium?
Oracle Park. I almost said AT&T. It's now Oracle Park in San Francisco.
I've never been there, but that's one on top of my bucket list. I love that park.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's right on the water. My favorite press box in the league, too. It's you're right behind home plate, not that far up. You can really see how pitchers are working, and that to me is really cool. I love pitching. When you can see the break on the pitches, in, out, up, down, what guys are trying to do to hitters, it really heightens my enjoyment of watching the game.
What's a go-to snack when covering a game?
Well, I'm lucky and probably unlucky for my waistline. The Citi Field, I would say, has the best concessions in the league, so I'll often pop out of the press box, and every once in a while I'll go wait in the Shake Shack line. But favorite snack during a game? They just installed an ice cream machine in the Citi Field press box this year, so I'll from time to time I'll partake in that. That's always a good refresher.
What's one MLB beat writer you think you could strike out?
Oh, most of them. Most of them. I'll say my colleague with the Yankees, covers the Yankees, does a great job for Yankees.com, Brian Hoke. He wound up injuring himself in the Boston versus New York media game this year. So I think I certainly, given that information, I could take him.
If you could face one MLB player, who would you want to face on the mound?
Well, right now, answering this question, I would probably say Jacob deGrom. I think, having watched him in spring training from right behind the cage, having gotten that perspective to go up against probably the best pitcher going in baseball right now, and just to see it from that perspective would be something to behold.
And then my final question for you, Anthony, this is one I love to ask any baseball fans or writers. If a 15-year-old kid came up to you and told you they don't understand baseball and it's boring, what would you say to them?
I would say, I'm sorry, but you're wrong. I would say, go to a game, sit there, really watch it. And I'm not talking about tweet and go on Instagram. No, put your phone away, sit down, and really watch the game. It's such a great game, so much nuance, so much strategy. And look, I'm not going to sit here and say it's for everyone. It's a slower paced game. Maybe some people prefer other sports, but for me, it's always been far and away number one. And I would say give it a chance.
Well, Anthony, I want to say thanks again for coming on my show today. And where can the fans follow you on Twitter and follow along throughout this rest of the crazy MLB schedule coming up? And also, you have a new book coming out in the next year or so, right?
Yeah, I'm working with David Wright on his memoir that's due out in 2020. So it's really exciting getting to work with him on that. But yeah, just follow the Mets crazy run, of course. All our coverage is on Mets.com, MLB.com, and you can always follow me on Twitter at Anthony DiComo, which is I always look at my stories there and everything there, and we have some fun.
Perfect. Well, thanks again, Anthony, for coming on today. Greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, happy to come on, and good luck with your show and with everything.
Thank you very much, Anthony. Have a great rest of your day.
You too.
All right, Feuzion, you just heard it from Anthony DiComo, MLB.com Mets reporter. Well, once again, thank you for listening to this new episode of Feuzion News. We have another big week of shows lined up. Stay tuned on Twitter at AlexFeuz for more information on who's next on Feuzion News. We have some big guests coming up, including this upcoming Wednesday at noon. Dick Vitale is going to be on Feuzion News. Once again, thank you again for listening. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at AlexFeuz, and I will be seeing you very soon. Thanks for listening.